the shrine, and so the shrine drops that membership requirement for a short period of time, and they were
The
taken
problem
in.
with that is your grandmaster turns around and says, "Okay, well, then it's we don't recognize it and it's clandestine." You know what I mean? Or
Mhm.
slaps the hammer down, and
Yeah.
it really
Yeah,
hurts
well,
But if you really
that
think
way as
about
well.
it, gentlemen, if you really think about that not only deals with the shrine, that could deal with any house, any
sure,
upper
yeah.
house.
So, like, here's the thing, right?
Absolutely.
You couldn't really call it clandestine because it's not masonry at all, but the Grand Master could still say, hey, if you're a member of this organization, you can't be a Mason in this jurisdiction. Masonry has every right to do that. And you're right. So, like, Scottish Rite, they don't have a through line here. They're an independent body. And so they're attached to, appended
I would
to the
say I
craft
would say
lodge.
that's pretty much right up to the Royal Arch. And maybe I'm talking too much here, but I think part of the code or the landmarks, I think Royal Arch would be the exception to the rule because it does. Your landmarks kind of touch on that.
Right.
That
No,
makes
like, I
sense.
would consider that part of masonry, but
Right.
here's the thing, right? If the
But
Grand Lodge.
even the landmarks are kind of like it's kind of confusing when you read that, or I was confused anyway when I read it.
Right,
Sure,
because
yeah.
when you
So,
said, I'm sorry. I just gotta say this, because when you say that Royal Arch, there's a connection there. That you gotta think about that connection as well to the Royal Arch.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, so like, up to Royal Arch, that's most definitely masonry. But the thing of it is, if the Grand Craft Lodge for a jurisdiction doesn't recognize like that York Rite or Scottish Rite body, they're not considered legitimate within that jurisdiction.
I was going to say the ancient landmarks says that ancient craft masonry is the first 3 degrees of masonry, along with the Royal Arch.
yes,
Because that was a big contention between the
Right.
ancients and the moderns.
yes,
It's interesting because in the state of Oklahoma at one time, to be able to the Grand Lodge in Texas, they call it the Grand West, right? To be a voting member in the Grand Lodge or at Grand Lodge, you either have to be a presiding principal officer, one of the 3 chairs, or a past master. Now, in one time in Oklahoma, the requirement wasn't a presiding officer or past master; it was the Royal Arch. And I don't know when that changed. I want to say it was like in the early 1900s. Of course, Oklahoma becomes a state in 1907. Grand Lodge is formed between the 2 Grand Lodges existing in 1909. So probably around early 19 teens.
Well, see, it's just it's just deep. That's really deep, man. But, but I don't mean to harp on this, man. But the problem with me and most people who were part of clandestine jurisdictions, depending on how you go up in a clandestine organization, when you finally get able to come over and heal over to a source, a legitimate body, you don't want to go back through it because you feel like you already know. You follow what I'm saying?
Right. No, I got you.
So it's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't. So it's like, I don't know, man. I don't
So
know.
did you go back through it when you came back through? Some jurisdictions, depending upon what clandestine organization you came through, will offer what's called a healing. So you only have to do certain things. And I don't want to get too deep in there, but you only have to do certain things to be considered regular after doing those things. Some will make you start over basically from the petition and go all the way through. And so I was curious, when you came through, did you have to repetition and start all over, or were you able to do what they call a heal and only have to do a few things?
Well, I repetitioned
Okay.
and
Awesome.
I healed over as well. It's just both,
Yeah.
both. But what I mean by start over is, of course, anything above the 3rd degree, they don't accept.
Right.
So, but at the same time, in some clandestine jurisdictions, they do teach the same thing. So it's like, when a person
That's
comes
the problem
over.
with clandestine and in clandestine masonry, because you can have some that closely mirror, and the only thing that they don't have is lineage. Somebody left masonry and went and started a mirror image of.
Hello. What
Oh,
happened?
he went. Yeah, I don't know. I guess he had to do something. But yeah, so I mean, and it's not that Scottish Rite isn't masonry. It's that it's not ancient craft masonry.
No, no, no. Yeah, I get that. But what I'm saying is
I was
that
talking to the chat.
oh, what I'm saying is like oh, how is it? Okay, so like say with the Royal Arch, right? Um, if you're healed over from a clandestine jurisdiction, you're healed over. I don't want to go into, I don't want to. The first three, right? But then the other houses are mirrored, like you said, because the ritual. Of course, the clandestine jurisdiction is not going to have the ritual that you had that your grand has, but the other houses they're mirrored. So it's like coming from a clandestine perspective, you're like, I already went through that. Why do I have to go through that again? If you follow what I'm saying.
How do you know it's the same though?
The Royal Arch is not, because it is. I mean, I
Well,
just
yeah,
know.
but I'm saying if you haven't gone through both, and you're like, well, why do I have to go through that again if I did it the first time? Well, you don't know that you did it legitimately the first time because you haven't gone through it legitimately.
Okay, well, say you could actually buy. You can't. You could buy I don't want to put that out there. You can obtain information on the Royal Arch without having to go through it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that's similar to saying, if I was to take the key, the words, I didn't say I unalived my wife, right? And you put a key emphasis on any one of those one words, it changes the whole context and meaning of the phrase. I didn't say I unalived my wife. I didn't say I unalived my wife. I didn't say, and so on and so on. And so I think masonry, being the contextual institution that it is, right? Very contextual. It's easy to get caught up and put the wrong key emphasis on the wrong things. And when you do, it can drastically change the meaning of things.
Well, not only that, but there's conceptual knowledge and then there's experiential knowledge. And as a mystery tradition, it's to be experienced, not just read about.
But the other thing that we run into is with clandestine organizations. Obviously, the clandestine organization that you came from mirrored regular masonry. It probably didn't have the lineage or whatever. I don't know. I'm not going to claim to be the expert on why it was clandestine. But there is no gray area. There is no differential. There is no degree of how clandestine you are. It's either you're clandestine or you're not. It's black or white, right? There is no. It's either you are or you're not. And so the problem is you do have institutions out there that claim to be masonry, and it may be as bogus as going down to Walmart and buying some party hats, and they sing the hokey pokey, and that's how you become a master mason, and you put on this party hat, and that's your regalia, and they call themselves masons and collect their 501c3, and there's no telling. That's where it gets really dangerous. As far as what's the context that you're putting all these things into, if that makes sense.
I wanted to add real quick, just a little bit of trivia, or I don't know, but in my jurisdiction, if you got your lodge charter before, I want to say before the 1880s or 1870s, your charter actually says that you are that it is York style Freemasonry.
Yes, I believe that's how ours is here in Oklahoma. We got ours in the 1880s, and what's weird is we are still considered the same lodge. We were issued a new number, but we retain the same name. But we consider that original charter, like, even though it was reconstituted, I guess it was like a rededication of the charter, if that makes sense,
Morning.
under the Grand Lodge of Oklahoma. But we still consider that direct lineage from our original number 5 in Oklahoma Territory Lodge. And what's crazy is in Oklahoma, you had 2 grand jurisdictions, and it took them from 1907 to 1909 to figure out how we merged these 2 institutions together. We don't want to have double numbers. We don't want to say this one's that. So what they ended up doing is they had a literal lottery with lottery balls in a cage. And because Indian Territory was first, they got the first draw, and then Oklahoma Territory, and it went back and forth. So my lodge, it went from being number 5 in Oklahoma Territory to number 50 in Oklahoma Grand Lodge of State.
In Kentucky, that happened a lot during the Civil War. You had a lot of lodges shut down during the time of the war, and then they reopened after the Civil War was over. And they lost their original number, but they could keep their original charter, but they would have lost their original number, and they got a new charter, but they were considered the same lodge.
Right. Yeah, that's that. And I don't know what, I'm sure there's a term for that, and I don't know what that term is. But that's essentially what I believe my lodge went through.
Renominated.
Now, this year, we were told that if a new lodge is starting or a lodge is merging or whatever, you can pick any number that is no longer in use. So, like, if we started a lodge,
nice.
merged lodges, we could become like, whatever lodge, number 11 or 8 or something like that.
So we have we've got 2 charters in my lodge, the original one, and then the one that it's basically a copy. What's the material? Is it vellum? Is that the material that they make it out of? It's like a
yeah, vellum is something like that.
Yep. And then we have another one that's made of silk. They did so I guess in 1909, this guy decided that he was going to reprint all. And it's pretty much the same exact charter, looks exactly the same, except they changed the date on it, and I believe it's on silk, and that was changed in 1909.
Well,
you guys see what Julie's
wouldn't
putting
that be
in
unfair to the
comments?
other lodges that were still in existence? Like if you're able to come and claim number 11, but you haven't been there longer than 12, or you understand what I'm saying? It's like it's unfair, right?
Kind of, but it's also kind of cool that you can bring back something that was lost. I mean, it's kind of a Masonic theme, isn't it?
Wow, that's whatever. To each his own.
Right.
ACGI.
Well, yeah, it's good talking to you, brothers, man. I appreciate you letting me on the live here. I hope you guys have a good week. If I don't talk to you again later on the week.
Absolutely, Edward. I appreciate you coming up, and even though it's not my live, I do appreciate the conversation, and I always learn something every time you're around. So thanks for coming in.
With you guys, man. I appreciate it. But yeah, have a good weekend, and a good weekend, even better weekend if I don't speak with you guys.
Absolutely, you as well.
Bye-bye.
Well, Julie, you'll be happy to know that at 11, I'm going to be heading out here. And about 2:30, I have an appointment, and hopefully I'll come back home one fewer.
You got a tooth appointment at 2:30? Get it?
Yeah.
Tooth hurty. Tooth hurty.
She's like, get that damn tooth handled.
Tooth hurty. I get it.
I find what's going on in the chat right now hilarious.
I haven't been paying attention to it at all.
So Julie came in here, it's like, Masons are evil and they worship beans of the green variety. And Dalton's like, Masons worship God.
If I would have seen that as a mod, I would have blocked her in 2 seconds flat. I knew she was Clandy.
I don't know. I just keep knowledge of mystics keeps going, oh, my dear boy. And I guess it's because I said that Freemasonry didn't exist in the time of Solomon, that it's just an allegorical story. And like the first thing you get when you become an entered apprentice Mason, before you're an EA, when you become elected to receive the degrees, receive a paper, talks about Masonry, and one of the things it says in there is that all the stories in Masonry are allegorical and not to be considered historical fact.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you remotely have any clue on history, it's timelines just don't match up. With certain key figures, there's no way that Clyde just jumped on this camel and rode 3,000 miles and just happened to be there and then went back 3,000 miles the next night. Not that it's 3,000 miles. I don't know how many miles are apart, but timeline differentials. It's a lot like, you know what it reminds me of? Pirates of the Caribbean, when they bring all the I don't know which one it is. It's like the second or third one, or maybe fourth. I don't know how many movies there are, but they bring all the pirates in. Like, so you have the Spanish pirates, and then you have the Asian pirates, and you have the Somali pirates, and all these different pirates. And none of those pirates actually existed on the same timeline together, right? So it didn't happen that way. But it makes for a great story when you bring them all together for the 7 pieces of 8, right? It has a good storyline. It does tie in better, but that's a lot like some of the storylines that you see or the legends that you see. Some of the timelines just don't meet up.
Well, especially the timelines of stuff that happens in the York Rite and Scottish Rite. Some of the same things happen, but like there's like a 200-year, 300-year difference.
Right. And not to mention that the Scottish Rite timeline just, I don't want to get too deep into things, but it just does not, yeah.
Especially when you go into the Northern Masonic jurisdiction, their timeline's really messed up.
How close are you to Northern Masonic jurisdiction?
20 minutes.
Oh, are you? Okay, I didn't know if it was jump across the state line or if it was a...
Yeah, it's across the straight line. I live that close to the border to Ohio. So I just drive
that's
across
where
the
I'm
bridge
at.
and I'm there.
I'm at Ohio.
Do you go to the? Do you go to any of the Northern jurisdiction Scottish Rite reunions?
I went to the Dayton one a while back with Taven, back when it was still warm out.
We have a reunion coming up here on the 25th and 26th of October. You guys are welcome to the Valley of Canton if you guys are in the area.
Nice. We have ours November 2nd and 3rd, or 1st and 2nd. I had to go back and look. I just looked at it this morning. Typically, ours is the first week in October, but I'm not sure why we bumped back to the first weekend of November this year. But you guys are welcome to Guthrie Scottish Rite in Oklahoma.
Oh, sweet. Atlanta. That's a long ways.
Yeah, I'm a member of the Valley of Covington down here in Kentucky, but
Brothers
I
of
jump over.
the Sisters of the Moakana, I think, Julie. I'm sorry about me. You were saying?
Joshua Bacon is wrong, but we can go on. But yeah, I'm a member of the Valley of Covington down here, and occasionally I cross the bridge and go over to Cincinnati and Dayton. So Joshua, what about the Knights Templar in the York Rite?
Considered de facto. They are not even in. Wait, no.
Southern jurisdiction, they show up in the 28th degree and the 30th degree, but northern jurisdiction, they aren't really as prevalent in the northern.
Masons in the 1800s believed we went back to the Templars, but we can't prove it.
Actually, the Masonic Knights Templar Grand Encampment of the USA has said that we don't have any historical connections with the original Knights Templar, but we are an emulation of their more chivalrous characteristics.
Fraction. R fraction. I think he's just trolling.
Yeah, that's not even. Yeah. The Scottish Rites. So, never mind.
So,
Scottish Rite is French, dude.
So, have you guys read Mackey's History of Masonry?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a rabbit hole and a half.
So you've read how he went through the Druze, the Druids, the Essenes, the Assassins, all of the various sects in which we could come from, and then you know what his conclusion is?
What was his conclusion again? It's
Um,
all bunk.
where we all, well, I mean, half of 4 of the volumes is him just trashing every theory that there is under the sun, but he eventually comes up with a conclusion that's pretty interesting. I just was curious. He says that basically Masonry comes from the College of the Artificers, which is under Numa in Rome from, the year 730.
I mean, the only thing with that is you had all those Dark Ages and then the reboot of the Western world, so hardly anything survived out of Rome. But I suppose it's more plausible than believing that we go back to Egypt or Atlantis.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is
Are
that...
you saying that he doesn't link us back to the Moors?
Absolutely not.
Damn it.
Yeah, that would suck.
I had to throw the trolls a bone. Sorry.
Yeah, I love that. I love that
Proceed
so
on.
much. Yeah, absolutely not. There's so many points that just aren't in agreement. Not to call Masonry is definitely not a religion, but it's definitely not Moors. It's more of a religion than it is from the Moors. I would call it that, but
Is it though? Is it?
then it is from the Moors. Yes.
I think it's more of a cult on that side of things.
Yep.
Oh God, that's funny. But yeah, it's interesting to read that conclusion and to see kind of all of his chains. Because I mean, he has actual historical data, and it's not just a guess. Nothing Mackay ever did was like, "Hey guys, this is how I feel." It was like, even if it just looked perfect on paper, but there was no link, he just would discredit it. So to see his, because I mean, they actually have real historical artifacts from lodges. Well, they were colleges at the time.
So, Joshua, how are the Knights Templar a fraction of the Scottish Rite when the Knights Templar predate the Scottish Rite?
I'm an operative and in Masonic family, but I'm a chick.
For down in the chat, real quick, Duke of Kent has no authority in Masonry besides his jurisdiction. My jurisdiction or any other jurisdiction does not have to listen to anything the Grand Lodge of England says or the Duke of Kent because, each jurisdiction is sovereign. So, like the Grand Lodge of Illinois doesn't have to listen to what the Grand Lodge of England has to say, or it doesn't have to listen to what the Grand Lodge of Minnesota has to say. It doesn't have to
Interestingly
listen to...
enough, as well, the Duke of Kent. So by de facto, because the way the rural system is set up. Wow, the way the rural system is set up, the Queen was the de facto head of Freemasonry, right? Not that she had anything to do with Freemasonry, but she's the head of everything. She's the head of the church. She's the head of now that they have a king, And the king, I believe, unless he's advanced, was a fellowcraft, the last I heard. It does change things up over there because even though he's still through the initiatic process, the Duke of Kent still reports to the king. So it does kind of form a little bit of a quagmire because I believe in the past hasn't the king been the Grand Master at the same time? Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. I don't follow British royalty.
I thought that the Queen's father, King, was it George? I thought that he has obviously a Grand Master apron. I thought he was Grand Master while he was king as well. So I don't know.
Yeah. The whole thing about masonry and the whole like this from there and there from this that mattered in the start of masonry in other countries, but that's about it. I mean, from there.
And even in the UK, you'll get onto some of these lives here today. I mean, you can go in. There's probably a live going on right now, 2 lives over, and it'll be from the UK, and they will still dispute whether Scotland, Ireland, or England is the oldest, and they will get into bicker back and forth, and yeah.
Yeah, and
I don't know
yeah, I mean,
what Josh is saying.
sorry, what did he say? Because they shared dark knowledge with Freemasons, the old order considered them de facto.
What do you even mean by de facto?
That guy, hold on, real quick. That guy believes that he's actually Jesus.
That Joshua. I always forget he's that Joshua.
Yeah. So,
I think he's just trolling.
Yeah.
Do you know what de facto means, man?
Who are you talking to?
Him, Joshua.
I'm telling you right now, and I'm not picking on the guy, but that's a whole nother. There's some.
It's just not. Yeah, no one claims it. No one claims it, Joshua. We don't claim that we are the exact lineage from Jacques de Molay. Okay, we don't claim that.
What do the sovereign lodges unite?
It'd be a whole lot cooler if we were, but.
Well, my Grand Lodge meets at the Scottish Rite Temple because it's huge.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But no, there's no Grand Ultra Lodge over all the
Grand Ultra Lodge. I don't know, man. There might be once you hear some of the crazy names in the York Rite.
Have you guys not seen that TikTok?
Excellent.
Have you not seen the TikTok with the guy that's the Grand Master of the United Nations?
Jesus.
Oh, yeah. That dude was wearing like 6 different types of regalia, all bought from like Temu. Like
shoot, look at the Memphis Mizram titles. Excellent, most powerful, perfect, proficient.
I didn't know if he was a Grand Master or if he was a North Korean general.
Julie, Worshipful Brother John was just in here.
The Collins family.
What
is this? It's the old order who's claiming in society they're calling themselves the Illuminati. No, my man. You want to read up about the Illuminati? Just get the book by Joseph Wages.
My favorite title in the York Rite that I have is the Super Most Excellent Master.
Yes. That's the guy. I actually just went through that like 4 or 5 months ago.
The OKI degree? The OKI, where Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana come together to do it?
Was it Joshua that was on here the other? It might not have been Bird.
I was at that. I was at that.
I haven't been to
it might not have been your live, Bird, but Joshua was in here saying that I believe it's Joshua.
He was in here the other day, but it's probably
that each degree is actually a demon's name.
Oh, is that making its rounds again? I want to know how Fellowcraft is the name of a demon.
Yeah, that would suck to be a demon named Entered Apprentice.
Right? No shit.
That reminds me of when I was going to this Baptist church, or Baptist school. The headmaster said that all the names of Pokemon were the names of Oriental demons. And I had to argue that because I don't think there's a demon named Jigglypuff.
Doesn't Pikachu mean like sweet kiss or something like that?
Dude, I have no idea.
I think it actually means electric mouse.
I'm going to mute
Yeah,
up for a
that
minute. I
sounds
got to go
legit.
in here and run an errand. I will be back here in a little bit, but I'm going to mute up. So if you ask me any questions I don't answer, I'm not asleep or anything like that, but I'll be right back.